Alright, so I'm talking to you guys about Shantae, Half-Genie Hero, for like the third time now. And I just... Look. Okay, I know I have the whole spiel I usually say, but it's part 3. You're like, what is this guy doing? What more is there to say? I already did the base game, and then I was like, oh, there's DLC, and I was on the fence about do I want to get it or not, and I broke down, and I did, because I'm weak. And then I talked about all the DLC that was out and available at the time. And as I was going to just, I was going to record the footage for that, I saw there was another thing of DLC. And it wasn't actually out yet, but it was like implemented into the game. You just couldn't buy it quite yet. And it was just on the menu. And I was like, shit, there's more. Do I even really want to get more? And of course I do. Of course I did. And this is the costume pack DLC. And so I wanted to talk about that. It actually consists of 3 campaigns, so I figured it's probably too much to try to add on to the other one. And probably enough to be its own standalone thing. So if you haven't seen my review of the base game yet, you might want to check that out. Or, hopefully at this point, like if you're watching this, you're more familiar with the, the base game in general. You're like, oh, there's DLC, I should know the base game. So I'm not going to go over tons of that stuff again or whatever, and I might reference stuff from the other 2 packs a little bit, but even if you haven't seen the second part, you should be okay. I'm going to try to match up some of the footage so I can show you at least some of all the different campaigns here, so that's neat. And just to give you a little brief overview, basically the 3 campaigns there's a ninja mode, there is officer mode, and there is beach mode. And I'll probably just talk about those in the order that I experienced them. There's also a written review that you can check out before or after instead of this video review in the description. You can look at the link to that, and might link the other parts. We'll see whatever shows up in the description. I put it there. That was me. Yeah, let's do it, man. Whatever. Transitions. You can never predict them. So the first mode I played was ninja mode, where you are dressed up like a ninja, and the plot is basically just that Shantae's ninja outfit has just arrived, and she's eager to start training to become a master ninja. And it comes with a scroll that tells you how to do these different techniques and these different things you must do to master the arts of the ninja, the way of the ninja, and become a master ninja, a true ninja, that kind of thing, ninja. Which essentially just guides you through the main levels of the game again. Kind of like the Friends to the End thing, where it's like you can select the different stages. There's no like hub world, there's no map or anything. You just kind of select the stages and go in a more linear fashion. Before each stage, you get a thing with a new tune, actually just to fit the ninja thing, and you have some kind of... Shantae has a monologue with herself about what's the next thing written on the scroll that I have to master to be a ninja. And then you proceed to go through an altered version of the stages, basically of a stage you already played. The bosses, I think, are all the same bosses. They're not really changed in any way. It's just that you have different abilities to tackle them. So in ninja mode, you move faster than you do regularly. You attack with a sword, and you have these throwing weapons, these ninja-themed throwing weapons that consume some magic when you use them. And you can cling to walls and jump off of them. And the other thing is, like, the big one is the Ninja Vanish, which is basically you, by pushing the button for that, if you're standing still and you hold the button down, you'll vanish. You can't be seen, you can't be hurt, and that's basically you can do that indefinitely until you let go of the button again, and then you'll reappear in that exact same spot. If you're hitting a direction with it, you can actually teleport yourself in whatever direction you're hitting. Even if you're in the middle of a jump, so it kind of lets you like teleport around and do stuff with that. And you're invulnerable, for the duration of your invisibility. And then there's like a leveling system in here. There's no upgrades really to get or anything. You can collect some hearts to refill your health. You only get 3 hearts for the whole thing. And there's little magic vials, to refill your magic meter. But other than that, there's like this leveling system with the gems. Basically collecting gems has you leveling yourself up, kind of like, again, Friends to the End thing. You get gems to level yourself up. Every time you hit, you drop some gems, and you can level down again. The higher your level, then it does more damage with your sword. I think your projectile might do more damage too, but it for sure has it changes the projectile, I think, and it has you throw multiple of them. So the higher level, the more you're throwing, and also you swing your sword faster if you have a higher level too. So there's that. And that's basically all there is to that leveling system. As far as these collectibles, also in the levels, they have some... Basically, every stage has 3 secret squids for you to find, and they're usually either in a hard-to-reach place or somewhat hidden. If you collect all of them, you get a bonus image at the end for collecting all of them, 100% completion. That's pretty much what you do. I mean, that's, it's similar stuff to the main game, and of course, you can kind of expect it now if you got the DLC in order. And it's good. I mean, I like it. I think it's got some fun, like set dressing stuff. Just to preface it, it's like, okay, they got like a story that's like kind of dumb, but it lets you have this like pretty funny dialogue. A lot of the monologue stuff that Shantae says is actually pretty funny. I liked a lot of that. The outfit was like, what you put Shantae in a cute outfit, how's it not gonna look cute? It's Shantae, of course. I liked that. And there's like that cool like new theme you get every time you look at the ninja scroll at the beginning of like a level. I like that too because there's a really cool theme playing. And it's just cool that like they added in their like new little song, like a track for just that little part. It's pretty cool. It was really catchy. So a lot of the stuff around the gameplay was pretty cool already, and the gameplay itself is really fun too. I mean, it's just really satisfying to like run around and shit, and like do the teleports and invulnerability thing, and like the way you tackle bosses in different situations actually I thought was really interesting and fun. Like going through the stages, I kind of wanted to keep just moving and like wanted to be slashing and teleporting and doing all this shit. So I wanted to keep moving and not like lose my momentum. I didn't have to, but I just kind of felt like I wanted to because of how like fluid and fun that was. And then like fighting the bosses was really fun because it was the way to tackle the bosses. Like it's the same like fights, but then like you kind of have to think like, okay, how am I going to tackle this with the abilities I have at hand? And I thought that was really cool. So I think it did, basically the main stuff it had to do was cool, but of course there's a few downsides to it. There are a few parts where we're trying to do the ninja vanish thing to like teleport over to like a specific like, thing to grab it would be kind of weird because it's hard to judge the distance, it's hard to necessarily judge the timing and the angle of it, and if you're not pretty close to where you're supposed to be, you're going to fuck it up and die. So that was frustrating in a few parts. Once again, you are rehashing mainly, like the levels are remixed a bit, but you're rehashing mostly the same like levels and assets. You're rehashing the same bosses, even if I do think they're interesting that way. If you've already played some of this and like all the other content leading up to this, you may be kind of sick of that. You may want something more new, more fresh. I understand. So there's definitely things where like you could look at it and be like, I don't know. But I think for the most part, it came around for me and ended up being a pretty cool experience. Just to mess around with that. So that one was overall a pretty fun campaign. Next up is Officer Mode, which I think is based off of the Switch Force games that are also done by WayForward, but I'm not familiar with those, and I didn't look it up, so I'm not going to necessarily make that claim. But it's very possible that that's what that is. The plot is pretty simple. You play as like this futuristic cyborg space police person. And you're just out trying to catch all of these space hooligans that have broken out of prison. And along the way, you're also, you're getting a lot of leads in a lot of familiar places from the main game, and you kind of along the way encounter the bosses from the main game. Fancy that, and they're up to no good, which is not much of a surprise, but that's you just kind of have to stop them in your process of trying to get back all of these space hooligans and deal with bringing justice to the world. Mechanically, it's also pretty simplified. It is to me basically it's pretty simple. Like it's very similar to Mega Man, where like you can jump and you can shoot, and that's like a lot of what you're doing. But there's also another little thing which I think it's in Switch Force, but I've not played any Switch Force games, so we're not gonna necessarily say that. But you have this button. You have a dedicated switch button, which can switch these switch blocks. From basically, they're sometimes they're transparent, and the other ones are pushed out into the foreground more so. So it's like hitting the button will switch all of the transparent ones into active ones, and make the other ones go dormant. That's sort of the idea, and the game will pause very briefly for it to quickly do this. This switch. And that's the main mechanic that is used for a lot of traversing levels. A lot of levels have been changed to have these blocks there for platforming stuff. You can use them in some of the bosses too. They can also be used to knock enemies around. Like you can use them to block projectiles and such, but you can use them to actually, if an enemy is in front of a dormant block and you hit the switch, and it pushes the block forward, it'll smash the enemy into the fucking like front of the screen and kill them. But of course, it can also do that to you as well, and then you'll respawn at your last checkpoint with some lost health, or of course, because if you don't have any health, you'll die. Speaking of the health, you still only have 3 hearts for this whole thing, but you're like a robot, so like you have a very durable body, and so you can seems like you can take a decent amount of damage in this as well. Water is also a no-no, though. Don't go in the water. You will instantly, die in that. And there's no ducking or anything. It's pretty classic Mega Man with like this switch mechanic on top of it, basically. There's also a bit of a leveling system for your gun. Your gun shoots can only have 3 shots on the screen at a time, and so you shoot these little pellets. And if you level it up by collecting enough gems, you'll have a spread of those little pellets. You have 3 of those pellets per shot in like a little spread. Upgraded again, you'll get a really big shot, and if you get it to the max level, you'll have a spread of 3 of those big shots, or those big projectiles per shot. Again, only 3 of your shots on screen at a time. Classic Mega Man rules. And if you get hit, you lose some gems, so of course you can level your gun back down in that fashion as well. Also, because you're looking for space hooligans, as that's kind of the point, you don't actually need to collect any of them, I don't think. They're just optional to collect all those to get the bonus image at the end for getting the completion percentage, like the Dream Squids, but they're cuter to look at than the Space Squids. Dream Squids, sorry. And they're the same like idea. There's actually 5 of these in each section rather than having 3 like the Dream Squids, so there's just more of them in each part. And you can go back and collect them later if you want, as the whole way that works is the same. But they're basically hitting around the levels in that same fashion, I guess, and that's the point. That's pretty much it. You collect those and you do the platforming, try to get through alive, and then you get to the end and you beat the game. It's pretty simplified, like I said, and it's great. I had such a good time playing this. It was a blast. Like, just the idea of using a projectile as your main attack instead of having it be like an optional thing changed up a lot of what you did, because you're already kind of used to these enemies from like the main game, but you're used to getting closer to them to hit them usually. So like, being able to shoot them from afar and being able to knock them around with like the moving of the blocks and shit was really cool. It was an interesting take on it. It also made the bosses a lot more fun to fight. To throw that in there too and change up how you approach them. It even actually, I mean, it was kind of tough because you can't duck either and you don't have some of those other abilities. So it made it a pretty dynamic change of like, you know, you're pretty strong with a lot of your shots and stuff and you can keep a distance, but you also don't have as many abilities to fight the bosses and do the stuff. So like, it is an interesting balance between these two concepts. The switching mechanic was done really well. One quick thing about the bosses too. Like, one of the bosses was awesome, and I guess it's related to the switching concept. Where like the Giga Mermaid I thought was a super fun boss fight. Where it was like, you needed to use the switching mechanic to platform up and shoot the different things to, you know, actually fight the boss with your projectiles. But also, you had to use the switch to like, you know, put blocks up and like put them in the way of the attacks that the Giga Mermaid was doing to like protect yourself. So I thought it was just a really fun use of that. There's a lot of fun things with that. And like, you know, balancing out like when you should, you know, time your presses of the switching so you don't fuck yourself over and so you can still do stuff against the enemies. It was a pretty, like, just really simple mechanics that I think they went a long way with those, and they did a lot of fun and interesting things with them to make it like really feel like a newer experience, regardless of the fact that they rehashed a lot of the same stuff over again. It was enough of a difference to make it really feel like it was new, and like exploring levels and stuff was kind of fun. It was a nice touch to make space hooligans instead of dream squids. Also, there's new music throughout like this whole thing, which was awesome. Like, a lot of it was like really catchy, especially like the desert theme. I was jamming out in the desert for far too long, but like, I want there to be like another soundtrack to come out now, another physical soundtrack, so I can have all of these songs on there. That would be fucking sweet. It's really cool. So that was also really fun. Like, sometimes I was just like, I want to get to the next like level and see what the music sounds like here now. Like, I was almost more excited for that than actually playing the level. It was crazy. So like, yeah, a lot of the simplicity and like just the way they worked with what they had really paid off a lot for me. And I think as far as downsides, I don't think there's many, other than, I guess, if you didn't want to play the same levels and bosses again, regardless of the new like mechanics to it, then I guess you might be a little disappointed. I thought it was fine. The dialogue wasn't as good this time around, as good as the ninja mode, but it was trying to be more simple and to the point, I guess, and that was sort of the thing. And like, big whoop, they focused on the action and the gameplay more than that, but the dialogue for some of that. So that's, some of it was okay, but like, it just wasn't as good, and I'm fine with it because the actual campaign of stuff you're doing was so fun. Still not a fan of the leveling system either with the gun thing. I'd rather just be a fixed thing, but not terrible. Mostly those things, I think, are the only things that really bothered me much with that kind of thing. Overall, I would definitely say that like, this was super fun. It's enough of a change in how you play and in what they did to the levels and the bosses that it ends up feeling like a worthwhile addition to playing through what is reusing this content. It's a very worthwhile addition. Definitely a great time. Okay, the Switch mode was the officer mode. I mean, was great. Awesome. Did I mention that the space hooligans are all like really adorable? Because there's also that. Your bonus image isn't great for getting all of them, but getting them is fun, and they're super cute. And I mean, it's just another picture of Shantae, even though it's barely a change, but you're like, you know, if you want the variance to see more of Shantae, like, why not? Beach mode has you basically just looking for the best beach ever. You want to find the best beach in all of Sequinland. And so Shantae dresses up in some quite flattering beach attire and sets out. And she remembers just about everything except sunscreen. So this campaign is basically based around the concept of constantly grabbing sunscreen. You go through the same levels yet again, fight the same bosses yet again, but they've all been tweaked a bit for your new abilities. See, you move at a normal rate, you attack with your hair like you always do. But here you collect gems to level up, so when you do that you get stronger with not only your attack, but also your special, which uses up magic. And this special is basically hitting a beach ball. You spike it down from your current position, diagonally down, and it bounces around the screen until it comes into contact with something, or bounces around a little bit until it just disappears. And so the higher the level, the bigger the beach ball, and the more damage it does, and of course the more damage your main attack does. You level up by collecting the gems from defeating enemies and breaking jars and shit. And you have this bubble ability, which you can go into a bubble and slowly float upwards for a short amount of time until the bubble pops, or until something hits it and pops it, or until you come in contact with a wall. So then those are all the things that will just burst that bubble and you'll fall down. You can reactivate it and hit with the button whenever to just fall out of it. If you hit jump while you're in the bubble, you can actually jump out of it. Something I wish I had known much earlier than I did. I mean, yeah, that's mainly the mechanics are doing that, and then collecting these little things of sunscreen that appear throughout the levels. If you wait too long before grabbing sunscreen, you will start losing your health. You only have 3 hearts total, and you'll start losing health by the second if you've been out in the sun too long. There's a little meter that shows the sun and how close you are to being burned by it, and it can actually kill you also. The sunscreen is sometimes dropped by enemies, but usually it's in fixed locations. The boss fights have been slightly altered to kind of work around these new mechanics as well. And certain parts of these boss fights will have them dropping sunscreen for you to grab during them, because the meter doesn't just go away because you're doing that. Also, you swim a lot faster. You can't go underwater, but you can swim in the water, and you swim super fast in this outfit. And when you're in the water, that also will make it so you're not getting sunburn. That's, I mean, pretty much what you do in it. And I think it has some neat stuff to it, like, obviously, like the outfit. I was staring quite a bit. But, I mean, like, they try to be kind of goofy with the story stuff. That's okay, I suppose. I guess it was pretty fun to try and mess around with, like, the idea of, like, okay, you have to keep moving, and grabbing the sunscreen is kind of interesting. Yeah, using the bubble is cool, and the beach ball are interesting. And it definitely made some of the platforming sections and some of the boss fights more fun to do with that. It made them pretty interesting with that. But I found myself having way more problems with this one, because essentially I think it's just really tedious and sometimes even bullshit. The levels themselves are okay. They do have the dream squids for you to find as well. Again, just trying to unlock a bonus image if you get all of them. And it's I mean, it's like, I don't know, the bubble is just kind of sluggish and slow, so a lot of times what will happen is you'll be in the bubble, and if it gets popped at a height you don't want it to be popped at, you'll fall way too far down before being able to activate it again and probably die from it, I guess, to try and balance it. But also sometimes the bubble doesn't float up fast enough, it's just a little more sluggish than you need it to be at certain points, and so you really have to preemptively use it. Otherwise, a lot of times you're going to be fucked over by using the bubble rather than having it actually save you like you planned. It's an item to use in a calculated manner, not really in a twitch, reflexive manner. And going back and grabbing sunscreen constantly is also sort of tedious, because usually what happens is you'll want to stay back and, like, you know, you move forward a little bit, maybe tackle an enemy or an obstacle or something, but then run back to where you know what sunscreen is to grab that before you start being sunburned to death. Which really doesn't really incentivize exploration much, because you have to constantly be, you know, make sure you're not getting hurt and dying, and then also managing the sunscreen thing and your location there, and sometimes you just don't really have the luxury of just quickly going back to some sunscreen, or easily doing that without being able to, you know, possibly getting hurt or dying in the process. And that means you usually have to take it painfully slow, or you have to go like aggressively fast and probably get hurt in the process anyway, which negates the point, because if you're just trying to get to the next sunscreen as quickly as possible, you're going to run out of health and die before you even get to it, which, what's even the point then? It's just really, really brutal. It's tough. And while it can be really precise and fun sometimes, some of the parts are just agonizingly brutal. Like, you have to do things perfectly. You have to take damage, or you have to take those really risky, like, leaps of faith and, like, jumps and bubble usages just to get the fucking, like, sunscreen so you don't die from that shit. It's really, really rough. Some of the bosses are actually the worst part, because some of these bosses are just flat out fucking horse shit. Like, you need the sunscreen so you don't just die over time. And sometimes the bosses just don't do the things you need for them to drop it, or aren't in a position for you to just hit them so they'll drop the sunscreen for you to grab. And sometimes you have to also time out when you're grabbing the sunscreen, because if they drop it and then you grab it right away and then they drop another one and you grab it like too soon, you're going to waste some time you could be spending just, idling a bit. But you don't want to, and like wearing out the one that you already had, but you don't want to wait too long, because if you wait too long it disappears. And so it's just this really annoying, like, ticking time bomb element that's just not really fun, or I don't really think it's necessarily that challenging, I guess sort of, but it's really rough and it's not real fair. It's just not real fun. And I'll be totally honest here, I didn't actually finish this campaign. I actually stopped, like 80% of the way through or something, because I was just like, it was not fun anymore. It was bullshit, and the only thing I was going to get out of it was maybe an image for beating it, a couple of images, and just a slightly more justification in how fucking bullshit it was. I mean, like, even if it got better or got worse or stayed the same, it wouldn't matter, because I've done so much of it already that at that point it can't really be made worse or better. It can't be saved at that point, and it's most likely just more of the same. And it just wasn't worth my time or my motivation. It didn't give me any motivation. It just wasn't worth it to bother to do the rest of it. I mean, thankfully this was only 1/3 of this pack. Otherwise, I would be pretty pissed off and disappointed. So that's the DLC. I just thought I'd hold the game up for this part. That's the whole DLC for you. Overall, I think that the costume pack is probably worth, like $10 or something. I think it's worth that, even just for Ninja Mode and Officer Mode, because Ninja Mode was pretty fun with some good humor going on in there, and fucking Officer Mode was surprisingly a delight. I didn't expect that one to be. I didn't really know what to expect from it, and it was great. So those are awesome. If you're more hardcore and you don't mind being really frustrated and doing tedious shit, the beach mode's probably fun for you. You might enjoy it. You might as well try it if you're getting the pack anyways. It's worth at least trying along with the other two. And as long as you like most of it, I mean, like, that's good. Like, two out of 3 ain't bad, and that's only just a fraction of the thing as a whole. Though, as a whole, it's pretty close to full-on, the base game and all of the different DLCs and shit. You're looking at probably full game price for getting this now. Because it's, like 20 or something for the game, plus, like, another, like 2 of them are 10, and then, like, the other one's, like... it's pretty close, like 50, 60. You're going to get close to the realm of just a brand new game price. And I don't know that it's necessarily worth it for everything. If anything, obviously you'll have the base game first, and I would recommend getting, Pirate Queen's Quest, and then probably this, and then the Friends to the End thing for the DLC packs, because that's just my 2 cents on those. But yeah, I would recommend it for people who really liked the game, and if you're looking for something that's more of the same stuff as you did in the main game, but a little more, basic and arcadey, this is probably going to be up your alley. It makes it so it's not necessarily just harder, but it tries to make it more different, a little bit more varied, and I think that's cool. That's nice. But if you're a big fan, you're going to want it anyway, and I think all of the shit is included on the Switch version that they put out, so if you just get that, you'll just get everything with it anyways. I assume, so that's interesting, I guess. But yeah, what do you guys think of the DLCs and the order that you would rank them and stuff? And do you think they're worth it? And did you beat Beach Mode? Because, look, I suck, I understand. But I was also mad, and I was just sick of it, and there's whatever, fuck it, I don't care. And I thought it would hold up the disc because I didn't hold this up yet. Because there's no DLC thingy for me to hold up, really, so... Yeah. And until the next game, this is probably the last Shantae review I'm going to do. We'll see, unless you have some kind of, like, fan games or some prototypes or some shit that's out there, and you guys want to point me in the direction of that, go ahead and do that in the comments. Again, you can check out the written review if you would like. That's in the description. And do all the other things with the YouTube's buttons and its doodads, all of the gadgets and gizmos. You know what to do, what not to do, and I'm a real person. God damn it, she's hot.